Happy Friday, everyone. It's Friday evening. Let's see. There we go. It's Friday evening. Hope everyone had a good day. I had a pretty decent day. I had Dora on the show. That was always awesome. There was explosive information that came out today, or a bombshell. So when I started the show, and the Trump and Russia stuff came up, and they were screaming at the top of their lungs that, oh my God, Hillary Clinton lost because Donald Trump was working with the Ruskies and that fucking Bernie Sanders and Comey. With this nonsense, I kind of made the point that they've made no link between Trump and Russia. This is political messaging that the media essentially resonated. And media hated Trump's guts, and they ran with the political messaging, and the focal point, the point of view, the oculus of the media essentially went down that particular tunnel. All information is essentially looking in the context of Trump and Russia. Every interaction with Russia was nefarious, as opposed to just being a business deal by a businessman. It's 2 years out, still nothing on this aspect of Trump colluding with Russia in order to hack the election. That said, what started off on somewhat of a false premise ended up with something that may actually be true. And even though the premise of it was false, even though there was a witch hunt in the truest sense of a word, witch hunt, it is possible that the information that comes from that witch hunt may have damning implications for Donald Trump. The bombshell that came out today has to do with Cohen. As you know, Cohen was Trump's attorney, and BuzzFeed comes out with an article saying that Donald Trump personally instructed Cohen to lie to Congress. This would be bad. This would be very bad for Donald Trump if this turns out to be true. Now, the way BuzzFeed makes it seem as if it's not just Cohen's word, but they also have documentation of this, like, you know, a cache of documents or whatever, as if they were having these conversations by email. And with that cache, Cohen essentially corroborated that, yes, this is exactly what happened. Donald Trump instructed me to lie to Congress. This would have damning implications if this is true. If you remember, the first draft of perjury charges that were drawn on Nixon was drawn on Nixon for personally instructing somebody to lie to Congress. So let's take a look at this story. This hasn't been corroborated by Cohen yet, meaning Cohen is set to speak to Congress. And I would imagine this is going to come up when Cohen speaks to Congress. And this will be somewhat of a personal or in the open affirmation of what this is asserting. Again, if that is true, this is going to have damning consequences. But again, we don't know if it's true. They keep coming out with stuff like this, and often it turns out to be not what it seems to be. So take this with a grain of salt. But again, I said before, even though the Russia stuff was nonsense, I made the point that Trump probably does have business ties with Russia. He's a businessman, and if I'm not mistaken, the Russians were some of the only people who'd loan him money. And so it wouldn't shock me in the least, as I said back then, if there were business ties in this case. There were business ties. A businessman trying to build a hotel. But Trump's issue here is not the business ties. Like, it's not the thing, it's the cover-up. And in this case, it's possible that the President of the United States told somebody to try to cover it up. But again, all of this started with the witch hunt. By the same token, it didn't stop Bill Clinton from being impeached. Again, it's witch hunt. President Donald Trump directed his attorney Michael Cohen to lie to Congress about the Moscow Tower project. And just the basics. It's a long article, but they're just two main points. The rest of it gives detail to those main points. President Donald Trump directed his longtime attorney, Michael Cohen, to lie to Congress about negotiations to build the Trump Tower in Moscow, according to two federal law enforcement involved in the investigation of the matter. Now, see, this is interesting to me, right? Is this Mueller? Like, are these federal law enforcement officials associated with the Mueller team? Otherwise, who else is doing an investigation? Trump also supported a plan set up by Cohen to visit Russia during the presidential campaign in order to personally meet Vladimir Putin and jumpstart the tower negotiations. Make it happen, the source said. I don't think that ever happened. So, I don't think that ever took place. He was planning to do X. And by the way, this is not a defense of Donald Trump in as much as just trying to get to what's being said. These guys have spent 2.5 years trying to go after any and everything associated with Donald Trump. And in doing so, they've come back with, for the most part, bupkis. Joy Behar screaming at the top of her lungs about, finally we got him. And they didn't have him. Over and over, one bombshell will come out that ended up not being a bombshell. So forgive my skepticism when I read something like this. Let's see. Cohen pleaded guilty in November to lying about a deal in testimony and in 2-page statement to State and House Intelligence Committees. Special Counsel Robert Mueller noted that Cohen's false claim that the project ended January 1st, 2016 was an attempt to minimize links between Moscow Project and Individual 1, widely understood to be Trump, in hopes of limiting the ongoing investigations. Now, the two sources have told BuzzFeed News that Cohen also told special counsel that after the election, the president personally instructed him to lie by claiming that the negotiations ended months earlier than they actually did in order to obscure Donald Trump's involvement. The special counsel, by the way, I can believe that. Donald Trump lies as easily as breathing. Why would that change in his personal behavior? It makes perfect sense. He paid a porn star. He paid him to pay off a porn star, something that, it's like Donald Trump had sex with a porn star. Nobody would bat an eye, but he still felt it necessary to pay off a porn star. I guess my point is, this wouldn't shock me to be true. The special counsel office learned about Trump's directive for Cohen to lie to Congress through interviews and multiple witnesses from the Trump Organization in internal company emails, text messages, and a cache of other documents. They were talking about this a lot, meaning they found Trump told Cohen to lie, and the first thing they did was spread it around company emails, text messages, and a cache of documents. It's like the only thing they could talk about that week was the fact that he told them to lie to Congress. But okay, this revelation is not the first evidence to suggest the president may have attempted to obstruct Congress. Okay, I don't know what that other evidence is. But Cohen's testimony marks a significant new frontier. It is the first known example of Trump explicitly telling a subordinate to lie directly about his own dealings with Russia. Well, they always say Russia as if we're talking about the country itself. We're talking about business people in the country. I guess I don't like the way they deify the country when they use it in those terms. Its own dealings with Russia as if Russia is a monolithic thing. All right. That said, just to give more context to this, let's take a listen to these guys. The co-reporter, the person who co-wrote this story, is on CNN. Listen to him walking back. It sounds like he's walking back. Ultimately, I guess he's clarifying because people got certain image in their heads after reading the BuzzFeed article. Let's take a look at him cleaning this up.
Individuals having contact with Russia, they are not alleging that this had anything to do with collusion.
But in terms of Ivanka and Don Jr., is it your reporting that they did anything wrong beyond having?
Nope. Not at all. Not in any way. We're not. All we reported yesterday was that our sources are saying that Donald Trump Jr.'s characterization to Congress that he had only peripheral knowledge of this plan. They're saying that characterization is a little off. They are not accusing him of lying. They are not saying that these individuals had any contact with Russia. They are not alleging that this had anything to do with collusion. So they are just giving us a broader view of what happened during the campaign.
I hope you heard that. The audio on that is kind of low. But he essentially says, look, we're not saying that they did anything wrong, talking about Donald Trump Jr. He said, we're not saying it is collusion. And by the way, I've been listening to a few of the media reports that has been covering this. Some of the stuff they're saying is amazing. Like, using this term collusion as if, what does that mean? What does that mean? They're looking, I'm not going to go there. So, but what this case boils down to is this. If they're right, if, in fact, they have a cache of documents, text messages, emails, that sounds so bizarre to me. It's like, hey, I'm going to need you to lie to Congress. All right. And then for whatever reason, you say, hey, you know, I asked you to lie to Congress. Are you going to lie to Congress? Yes, I'm going to lie to Congress. And you send text messages, and then you send emails about it. And then you keep documents. So, like, this seems so bizarre to me. But okay, let's say they have that. If they have that, Donald Trump is going to be impeached. That's if they have it. I mean, this BuzzFeed article in and of itself is not necessarily evidence that they actually have it. It's just this kind of them saying that they have it. But it's possible that Donald Trump will be impeached if this is true. Just saying. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I guess the argument can be made, would Republicans do it? I don't know. I mean, lying to Congress is somewhat of a big deal, supposedly. But we'll see. I guess we have to let it play out. Let's see who's here. I would say this, though. There will be a social hell to pay for it. Like, because understand, like the Clinton investigation. I think Clinton started with Whitewater, and going all the way from Whitewater, they end up getting him on an affair he had with an intern, and essentially lying about it. Lying about it. They ended up impeaching him over lying about a blowjob. They don't take that sitting down, and for the amount of hatred that Donald Trump kind of brings out of people because of the way he is. You may have a situation where the Republicans may be okay with impeaching him, particularly if they don't see him as one of theirs. Like, he's in the office, but he's not quite one of ours, per se. That type of thing. It depends on these kind of divisions within the Republican Party itself. Whereas Mike Pence is. I would say this. If Democrats go after Donald Trump and impeach him, they put Mike Pence in. Mike Pence is going to be a far more effective president, even within the next year, and even in managing a presidential campaign than Donald Trump would be. And it is a drastic change in the calculus going into the presidential election if Donald Trump is not in office and Mike Pence is. That doesn't even touch the amount of hatred that's going to be dredged up within the country of a 10-15% that is going to flip out over getting Trump out of office. They're going to look at it as a coup, or as this kind of soft coup that's taking place. That's assuming the impeachment carries the weight of pulling the president out of office. I mean, Bill Clinton got impeached and stayed in office. So, uncertain times. This will be our Brexit. You realize that, right? Not even our Brexit. The Brexit was this kind of show of defiance. Whatever you want to call it. Essentially a show of defiance by the population. And you can, in an odd, weird way, say a similar thing about Donald Trump. Seeing as 90-something% of people thought Trump was going to lose. And here's the other thing. What Trump says on this, to some degree, makes sense. I'm a businessman. I was in a business arrangement. I had an opportunity of trying to put a tower in Russia. I thought I was going to lose the election like everybody else. I thought myself, Donald Trump, was going to lose this election, and I didn't see the point of giving up a business deal during the point of a presidential campaign. That makes all the sense in the world to me. Yeah. This is crazy times. Crazy times. Reframe the discussion. We have the ability to reframe the discussion. Yes, get a little bit some pitchforks. Yes. I guess my fear in this is what you might get is that 10% flipping out. Let's say 20% of the population supports Trump. Let's say they're heavy Trump supporters. There's always going to be a percentage when something drastic like taking out a president takes place, that if they believe that it was done unjustly, there will be a percentage that will respond to that. The question is, what's the response? What's the societal upheaval that takes place with something like that? I don't think that number is nil. I think there will be societal upheaval over something like this. Trudy, what's happening, Trudy? Progressive need malicious community defense. Oh God, I know Martian Village. Definitely don't stop at Trump, but they will stop at Trump. Like, I heard Tom Hartman making an argument the other day saying, you know, we can get Trump out the office and we can get Mike Pence. And it's like, what? It's like, even if you could find something for Trump, how are you also dragging Mike Pence into this? They're in a fantasy world in this. In a fantasy world. Corbyn has survived 2 chicken coup attempts against him by MSM, UK Deep State, and Tony Blair following the parliamentary labor. Right. We now have to face something in leadership. A 3rd attempt against his leadership. That's not a 3rd attempt against him, are you? You tell me what's happening, Jamal. I missed it. There's reports out in BuzzFeed, Trudy, that Trump directed Cohen to lie to Congress. And if that's true, if he did indeed tell Trump to lie to Cohen to lie to Congress, that would be an impeachable offense. And with a bunch of Democrats who are screaming impeachment, and with a bunch of Republicans that don't particularly like Trump, this is somewhat of a threat to his presidency on this. I don't think this is minor. The catch becomes, do they have documents, and is what Cohen's saying true? Because pressure is being applied to Cohen essentially to compromise and all this other stuff for any kind of sentencing. And it does seem like they are out to get Donald Trump on this. So is what Cohen is saying is true, and how do you corroborate what Cohen is saying? But at the end of the day, if Donald Trump did instruct Cohen to lie, and if they have proof that Donald Trump instructed Cohen to lie, that looks bad for Trump. That looks bad. That looks very, very bad. How many politicians could withstand this kind of scrutiny? Digital attorney? Yes, which is why I don't think this is fair. Like, George Bush invaded a country that resulted in the deaths of, 1 million people? Not to mention immigration into other countries as people fled the war zones that Bush and the rest of the presidents started to create as they carve out the Middle East. George Bush is out there finger painting right now. They didn't impeach him for that at all. Obama didn't go after him for that at all. Nobody did anything for Bush at all. They just let him go home and go finger painting. That's amazing. Donald Trump goes in, he has business ties, and Hillary Clinton screams at the top of her lungs that the reason she lost that race wasn't because of her own incompetence, but purely because of Trump and Russia. She didn't even go to Wisconsin, for God's sakes. But the whole reason she lost was Trump and Russia. This was a political hit job that was dreamt up in her political campaign between, or the people in her political campaign, as a way of trying to obscure blame for failing to reality shows. The media hates Trump, took this up, and resonated it. Now, whether you want to say it's because they believe that they're, fighting some good fight, that this is against them and Trump is a threat to democracy itself, whether they bought into the jargon, whatever the reason, they resonated a very particular message, and they ran with it. Now, Trump is rather gross, and so it's not like the message is that far from the truth, but let's be honest, they have a certain demeanor when they go after him. And it is constant, and it is a full-bore drum roll. Oftentimes it goes into this thing of Trump and Russia, and they wouldn't let it go. Anytime you turn on the mainstream media today, you would get Trump and Russia going from the beginning of the presidency to now. Constant. They found no link between Trump and Russia from the standpoint of any kind of political stuff. What they found was a business connection that everyone, for the most part, knew about. And in the same way that where Bill Clinton was lying about a blowjob, I feel it's almost a similar thing. This kind of, salacious deal making that he didn't want the public to know about because the public was attacking him on this very issue. The whole point of all of this, for all of these years, has been Trump colluded with Russia in order to win the election. And we have moved away from that point to Trump told his lawyer to lie about a business deal. I'm just saying, I said early on that Trump has business dealings in Russia, or he most likely had business dealings in Russia. I guess my point is this doesn't necessarily shock me that somebody would lie about a business deal. That's all. And in telling his lawyer to lie, yeah, that's a big no-no. That's a big no-no. And that could be problematic. Nothing to do, again, with Trump-Russia collusion. Nothing to do with Trump-Russia collusion. But did they use it in order to dig in order to find stuff? Oh, God, yeah. And to some degree, did that witch hunt end up in finding this? And the answer is yes. The witch hunt might have started off as nothing, but what it ended up finding was essentially Trump fucking up. Let's see. The working class. I doubt Trump will be impeached for the C card. I don't know C card. I mean, Democrats have taken the House. And the question becomes, what do Republicans do in the Senate? And that's, again, assuming it's true. Cohen is going to testify before Congress, and that testimony, I would imagine, is going to be rather explosive. Nixon got impeached for essentially something similar. Just saying. Well, what interests me here, though, is how the public reacts to this. That's what I'm more curious about. If they take out a sitting president, it's under these legal processes and whatnot, but what does the public that support Donald Trump do? Do they look at their president being taken down and just hunch their shoulders and go about their way more disaffected? Or do they get active? I'm just curious about, from the standpoint of trying to bring a country together, this is not necessarily the best way to do it. But yeah, they're going for it. They're going for it. Yeah, I don't like Trump either. I don't like Trump either, but the characterization of him is that he's the devil incarnate. And they use that characterization almost in this kind of rapid, continuous drumbeat, completely disassociating how he got to that office and why people would be so disaffected that they would vote for him. Like, it's not magic, it's policy. Like this thing of what is the thing in people that ate people to such a degree where those people decide that they're going to vote Donald Trump? The media doesn't necessarily engage in that. The only thing they engage in is Donald Trump himself, as if Donald Trump is a once-off. Oh, we just fucked up this year, let's roll the dice again. Missing the reason for these political changes. You get into stuff like wages, and you get into stuff like the difficulty of people's lives. And even, they look at him while missing the point for him, or why he exists. So yeah, if they want to impeach Trump, the emollients clause should be used. Well, they've been taking Trump to court over certain things, like issues of the emollients clause. But this is different. This is like this treads that line of political and legalities, and if they get the opportunity. I'm sorry, there are some true believers. What's her name? The Muslim woman that's ferocious. What'd she say? She was like, I'm going to impeach this motherfucker. Anthony Reyes. If the shutdown goes in the next month, does that mean food stamps are put on hold? Anthony Reyes, at a certain point, yeah, food stamps will be put on hold. I don't know if it's next month, but at a certain point they will be. So, yes. Maskingo. Yay. Bernie versus Pence. I would prefer Bernie versus Trump. I would much... I think Trump is a weaker president against somebody like Sanders. Pence doesn't look like somebody's grandpa. Tlaib, that's her name. Tlaib. Anthony Reyes, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, Anthony, it's a government shutdown. I mean, these guys are letting it go. In fact, let's look that up. Let's just be precise. New York City could lose vital access to vital programs if shutdown extends. Why many stores can't accept food stamps during the shutdown. All right. So most people will receive their February food stamp benefits early around January 20th. If you're having an issue with your January benefits, please contact your worker. Call Sync. They may be speeding it up. It says they'll be paid in the current government shutdown for now. But they're saying you should budget. Yeah, I guess it's unclear. I mean, it looks like they may be paying him early. Next month, food stamps were paid this month. Yes, I was right. Good. The story is correct. How will this nonsense end? Honestly, truly, one or two ways. Well, one of three ways. Oh, one of four ways. I guess there's plenty of ways, and I shouldn't say one of, because it makes it, it means you're probably going to be wrong. Trump wakes up one morning and says, you know what, I see the light, I shouldn't do this, and I move on. I don't think that's going to happen. Democrats doing that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Trump just losing, where Republicans start to peel away their support, you know, where at a certain point, you know, like you said, food stamps aren't getting paid, Social Security is not getting paid, whatever, something's not getting paid, and you have people pissed off, including their constituencies, in which case they start peeling away their support from Donald Trump until it gets to the point where they pass it over his head. And even before they pass it over his head, the moment that Republicans and Democrats join to pass a bill and the president vetoes it, it's all his. To some degree, in an odd way, it starts to absolve the Republican Party of their support of this particular policy. If you get to the point where there's a veto-proof majority, then Donald Trump just loses. Whatever political clout, he just gets crushed. It's mano a mano, the president versus the legislative branch, and the legislative branch steamrolls him. There's that. There's the other case where the Democrats just kind of lose their nerve. Maybe the polls start to change. Maybe people start to get pissed off. And the Democratic Party just kind of does what it does, and its spine shrivels, in which case it gives in. There even may be some kind of compromise where Donald Trump takes like $1 million in order to just to make it stop. The other case is it doesn't stop anywhere within this particular space, and he calls a national emergency, and he uses funding from somewhere else in order to pay for the wall, in which case there will be lawsuits on the president of the United States at that point for using national security for that reason. That said, the national security thing will go into effect before the lawsuits are ever resolved, in which case they can get a law or like a court or something to stop the president from doing what he's doing. That becomes somewhat of a legal mess. Him going around Congress to get funding. Congress is supposed to control the purse strings, so this looks like an affront to their authority. Many Republican senators and legislators won't be on board for that. So It's hard to tell. I mean, it doesn't look like he's going to get the money through Congress. So it boils down to whether or not, how bad do you want it? Are you going to call a national security thing, creating this kind of legal quagmire, or not? I suspect he will do that if he needs to do that, because it's more embarrassing than just outright losing. Between outright losing and being crushed after losing support from senators and congressmen, between that reality, that's the worst case scenario for Trump, and the reality of pulling funding from somewhere else for messy legal fight. The messy legal fight is a better alternative, especially after putting the country through this much. I don't think you're just going to turn around and take an opposite policy. So, which one of those? I don't know. I suspect the national security one. I think he calls national emergency. That's what I suspect. I mean, either he gets the money through Congress, either he comes around, man comes around, which I don't suspect either one of those things are going to take place, has resolved somehow. And there's only so much pain that I think he's going to be able to take on not having people get paid. I'm already seeing sob stories over and over and over again. That's only going to get worse. And at a certain point, that money is going to have an effect downstream, meaning it's not just the workers themselves, but those workers aren't buying certain things. Those workers don't have money to contribute to the economy. Not to mention those workers have friends and family. Like, it is going to be somewhat of a cascading effect, and there will be pain associated with it. You think to yourself, there's no way this can go for more than X number of months. But, you know, even when you think of it in those terms, we're talking about the federal government of the United States partial shutdown, where nearly 1 million people are not getting paid, but those people are still required to work. I still say it's the best interest of those people to pull away, to walk away. It's so fucking wrong to use workers as a farce in this, workers as pawns in this farce. Truly, I agree with you. I agree with you. It really is. It really is. Vino me, and workers do support services for the economy, which in theory helps the economy. It does. Those workers have cash. Those workers put that cash to buy goods, foods, you know, services. They're part of the economy just like anybody else. Mike Pence has a dirty water crisis from his time in Indiana too. Does he now? I'm not shocked by that. How come you only have 2 thumbs up? Are all your other listeners thumbless? Thumbless. That's what it. It's making them work without pay. Yeah, because what is it? Taft-Hartley Act. They're not allowed to strike. They should strike anyway. I mean, the teachers in West Virginia supposedly weren't allowed to strike, nor were the teachers in Washington State supposed to strike. Both of them did. Yeah, they need to flout the law on that. All right. Yeah, not to mention TSA officers didn't get paid that much. So, all right, I'm going to end this. At 6:30, I'm going to have a conversation with Jordan Chariton. He's going to put that up on his site on Sunday, I believe. And so I may have additional videos after. It depends on how I feel. But we'll see. There is a 420 that I really want to do, that I really want to do, that's really good. It's a 420 even though it's not a 420 at all. Because even though what's being said is fucking out of this world, it's relating to governmental process. It's like the melding of 420 and governmental stuff. So I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.